group exercise, the benefits, the need to work together, the need to be radical, the need to challenge, the need to ensure that every single human being, irrespective of what you look like, where you come from, what you believe in, what you sound like, and whatever your lifestyle choice should suggest, what I believe, and I'm sure many of you believe, that sport, physical activity, and its leisure and recreational benefit to society should be a fundamental human right. Hugh and Brett have ideally set the background context and platform upon which to build a very exciting day. I'm going to bring this first plenary to hopefully a further platform of consolidation by simply bringing what I've been doing, what I've been up to, and why I'm here. Time is always a friend and an enemy. And I believe that on that basis, I think it was a year ago, I was here in Cardiff, and we looked at active Wales. And by the way, it is a pre-Olympic and Paralympic year. Just want to sow that seed in everyone's minds. This should be where we're all planning, preparing to present what a legacy continues to represent, and on the basis that every one of you will have a memory from that summer of 2012. Agreed? Every single one of you. That's where Britain found itself, if only for a month or months leading up to. That's where everybody worked together. It's where everybody found a sense of purpose, and everyone believed that the representative competitors of this green and pleasant land actually could inspire a generation. The background and introduction are there for you to have your slides and to refer to, review, and reflect upon. So I'm going to move at the speed I used to move at when I was a lot younger, and still try and keep up now with those who are a lot younger than me, and try and kid myself that I'm able to hang in there with those who are far more switched on than we are. I'm going to talk about young people and why they are central, critical, and focal to everything that we do. They're the long-term investment of the short and medium term. They're the intergenerational motivation of all things, whether you be parents, godparents, aunts, uncles, guardians, whatever you might be. And if you haven't got a young person within your radar, quite frankly, you're out of the game. And that game is life. The Wellbeing and Future Generations Act was one of the most progressive government policies of recent times. It actually identified what we could expect. The goals were set. The ways of working were set. Agencies and organisations were challenged with models, frameworks that would hopefully bring together what a future Prime Minister might consider as instinct. Well, I say it's a sense of. It's a common sense of. Because let's not forget, most of you here will have benefited from sport for all. You remember sport for all. That's what it meant. One of the most progressive sports ministers, the late Dennis Howell, negotiated from those who have that sport for all be for those that have not. And I'm a product of that. The current picture, as presented a year ago, was everything that we needed to look at by way of physical activity in our young, the fact that if they are inactive, the health inequalities and the resulting issues that would hit them far too early in life would show within the NHS radar and cost rather more now than should be costing in the future. The issues are always there. Everyone would recognise with the issues what we need to do. But as Hugh said, how are we going to get on with it? How are we going to be more radical? One thing as a recreation officer, we always had something to say. We always challenged our councillors. We became a repeated nuisance. And if you're not repeatedly becoming a nuisance to your councillor or your boss, and they just give you what you want to get rid of you, you're not succeeding, people. You need to be the advocates, the warriors. You need to fight for, compete for, and secure what is rightfully ours to empower those that you represent. That's me. Intimidating, huh? All of that represents, and by the way, I pay tribute to my father, Stanley Beresford Thompson, who was the Windrush generation. He came here after fighting the Second World War. He settled in this green and pleasant land in Wolverhampton, but his first haulage company was in Wales. That's why he nicknamed me Llywelyn. My mother, Violet Adriana Thompson, who was 90 a day ago, she was the Windrush generation. She met my dad, and I became the product of their union. I grew up in Wolverhampton with a sense of everything that would be active to me. I climbed trees, I fell out of trees. My mother cleaned the wound and smacked my bum and told me it would be more sensible. But at the end of the day, I was adventurous, I was inquisitive, I was curious. I was a product of a whole community relationship. My father died at 7. My disaffection and disadvantage and disillusionment saw me move to the East End of London. The colour of my skin was not an option. I could not adapt to my environment, but I got rid of my accent very, very quickly because I wanted to fit in. I put soap on my face because I said if you didn't have soap on your face, you couldn't play with us. I thought it was perfectly reasonable. I wanted to play, so I put soap on my face. About a year later, I thought it's a pretty stupid thing to do, and I wasn't doing a Camo commercial. Anyone know Camo? Mum knows that. But the East End also had its challenges and its intolerances. And I always credit the National Front and a postcode that saw the all-boys school chase the all-girls school. I believe in co-education. It's a lot more sensible, and you build a lot more healthy relationships, and you might get more out of the educational experience. But I learned very quickly that sport, physical activity, the arts were my escape. I could lose myself. I was a bit of an entrepreneur. I sold more West Indian patties than Alan Sugarman sold transistor radios, and I was an apprentice. But at school, it didn't hold much for me. But I discovered karate, and it discovered me because Michael Sobel and a local authority visiting opened the Michael Sobel Sports Centre. We went there for our way of our sport activity by way of school time, and I went there after time, and it changed my life. Sport became, as karate was to become, something that would give me mental, physical, and emotional confidence and a curriculum for life. I didn't discover competition, it discovered me. A Japanese culture. Mr. Kobayashi did not speak English, but he could communicate that emotional intelligence. He demonstrated the skills and arts and tools that were to captivate me, and so many in that Bruce Lee era. Heroes and heroines. We all need to be inspired. We all need to be motivated. I won 5 gold medals. I was one of the most fearsome competitors in the 80s, and I led a Great Britain team that was the most successful of its era. All misfits, all potential bad boys and potential bad girls, because women equally dominated, and it was the most equitably diverse and inclusive representation of potential bad boys made good, who, whether at Her Majesty's leisure, went out to her pleasure. Work that one out. During the 80s, there were riots. Whilst I was conquering the world, the communities I came from were voicing the most extreme form of democracy, where the injustice of stop and search and being marginalised and given limited life chances saw them riot. The then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who thought sport was for the unclean, but welcomed any medal that would promote Britain, and while she had football as the only depiction of sport and what it did for Britain's reputation on the stage, international stage, we met at a reception. I challenged her. I'm not into the politics. I am into the democracy that fuels the politics and the leaders who make decisive decisions. Why wouldn't we do well with some decisive leadership? But that's not one person. That's every person. Like you, I've been to the village of Westminster, and I sometimes wonder how a village can make decisions for communities. Just another thought sown. But very quickly, there was an initiative review group on the basis of that chance encounter and an extraordinary leader who had an extraordinary mind, because that's what she did have, whatever her views of how she saw Britain greater and stronger as a result. The initiative review group had quickly legend Clive Lloyd, Steve Ovett, myself, Colin Moynihan, businessmen, civil servants, and a whole host of leaderines travel up and down the country in those inner-city communities. We came up with a report, and like all reports, as you mentioned, radical, but what recommendations were taken forward. But on the basis of a bidding and hosting of legacy of major games, it's worth noting that we have been bidding, hosting, and look at the legacy of major games for over 50 years. Therefore, we should be pretty good at it, would you not think? Therefore, the culminative effort of all our efforts should start seeing something more sustainable, developmental, and impactful. So I went from tracksuit to lounge suit. I did my time at the GB Sports Council then as the only face in the crowd, served 11 years of an incredible decade, telling truth to power. I can still continue to tell the truth to power. It's not a crime, it's not an offence, it's what's right. It's important that we remember that we challenge, because it's our ability to challenge for those who least to have the opportunity to feast on it. On my way to Hollywood, I end up in Manchester. I had won my first karate title in Manchester, so why wouldn't you return on the basis that life takes you on a journey that you would least expect to take you to? I was part of Live Aid in '85. I've always given back. Geldof did it with the arts, I did it with sport. But it all started whilst Manchester were bidding for the 2000 Games, and a 14-year-old schoolboy was shot dead on the streets of Moss Side. His name was Benji Stanley. You will all know Stephen Lawrence, would you not? I hope you will. Stephen Lawrence had Stephen Lawrence Day this year. Were any of you aware of it? Well, it was the culmination of a time where this nation soul-searched on what was considered institutionally racist. For me, just ignorance and fear. And how did we overcome it? And this country, when it does become right and proper in all things, tolerant, will do the right thing. But we always need to be mindful that we never sleepwalk. Well, Benji was taught that it was an area that we'd been to during the initiative group in Moss Side, and I decided something needed to happen. So we launched a youth charter. We went to Wembley, Recman, for those who remember Recman. It's where everybody got together, and we discussed, debated, complained, argued, and went back somewhat more emboldened that we were doing the right thing. Not many people said no to me at that time. The bid gave me a very small budget, as did the late Sir Peter Yarrington from Sport England, a chair's action, and I went to work. By the way, I was a leisure officer in the south of Fulham when the IRA were very active. Councillor Murphy and that community were some of the best times of my life, because as I was winning my medals, I brought it back to that community sports hall. I didn't need a marketing budget. They all just flowed in, and I empowered every single one of them who came in there, because communities can only be sustained when it's for the community, by the community, with the community. That is how it's sustainable. Everything else is playing around. We've invested hundreds of millions of pounds, and we have not had a return on that social, cultural, and economic investment, and the benefit to our citizens. So the charter was launched. We've been around for 26 years. I'm incredibly proud of that fact, because people say, what do you do? We engage, equip, and empower young people and the communities in which they live. We engage them with sport, art, culture, and digital latterly, but on the basis that 99% of fitness is between their ears, so it should never be replaced by these artificial, intelligent devices. We equip them with the mental, physical, and emotional life skills, resilience, and potential, and then give them an aspiration to be empowered. And they have to be empowered to be employable, further or higher in their education, or entrepreneurship. Without those three, as an ecosystem and a cycle of wealth, this is not worth doing. We've contributed to much. This is simply by way of record. It's all there if you wish to find it. The great thing about Google, when they said many years ago that they will scan every single book in the world, everyone laughed. Why aren't we looking at the art, not only of the possible, but impossible? What can't we achieve if we put our collective minds to it? You will see a number of sporting greats there, not me, those who don't look like me. I'm the face in that crowd. Baroness Tanny Gray-Thompson is one of those who signed that scroll, a symbol, sportsmen and women who came from socioeconomically challenged backgrounds, but who through sport were able to find themselves, discover themselves, and achieve sporting greatness. But more importantly, put something back. We now both serve on the London Legacy Development Corporation. The East End of London has its challenges, believe me, but at the moment, of one of the only host cities of a major games, is there truly a collective effort to seeing a legacy. But is it for all? Does it benefit everybody? You talked about facilities in the summer that are closed. I enjoyed play centres and summer schools. I didn't pay, couldn't afford, I climbed over the wall if there was a gate. By the way, those schools that are closed, we had fences cut open in Moss Side at the peak of the gang problem. A kickabout area that had no lights, had the flyover, that had the lighting, and there was midnight sport. Saved lives at a time when it needed to. Because sport is the vaccine and the antidote, but it is not the panacea. But we realised that young people needed somewhere to go. It was critical. And by giving them somewhere to go, you had to give them something to do. Please understand that we will have a full medalled e-sport, recognised Olympic discipline and Paralympic discipline, if not for Tokyo, definitely for Paris, 2024. E-sports are a reality, but how do we blend it and get that interactively active and actively interactive youth culture intergenerationally working with us? Something to do is someone to show them, critically. Sport England's and the home countries, coaching strategies and volunteering strategies need to be one strategy. We have volunteers, we have mentors, we have mentees, we have everything, but we're still not able to engage them with a relationship of trust, confidence, and respect. That's what they're getting on the streets. Those are the street elders who don't operate with bureaucracies and processes and systems. They can do it in a matter of hours. It takes us days. We've got to be able to both react and respond. And I come from a time where we could react and respond. The community campus, I'm going to go back one, are a group of facilities that do just that. They open up for a mandatory 5 hours a week, every day. Then we need individuals who can be engaged, equipped, empowered with the skills, tool, and empathy to socially coach, because I believe that's what we needed. Well, that's what we've been doing for over 26 years. Social coaches, inspired by the late President Mandela, who post-apartheid South Africa said, the vision for sport that Brett made reference to in his opening slide is to give me a chance to have sport in the arts help the nation breathe before a race war takes place. So we used it unashamedly and succeeded with it. The social coaches are drawn from every walk of life. Also inspired by the late, great Muhammad Ali, his core principles and values: confidence, conviction, dedication, giving, respect, and spirituality. Those are all values that we look for, because those are what we look to translate into our young future citizens, our global citizens, who will have rights and responsibilities that will help them help this climate and this environment and this culture. And by the way, it's all part of our retirement investment plan, because I'm sure we're expecting to have a quality of life. And I certainly want a young person, as my mother's now enjoying with her neighbours, because she lives 4 flights up, still got a bad knee, the lift breaks down, but it's the kids who go and get her shopping, the kids who are looking out for her. There is a slightly Karate Kid influence there, but it's whole community. It has to be by the community. We've recognised the digital age. DigiWise just that. Interactively active and actively interactive. It takes the sport, art, culture activity and digitally engages it for the classroom, playground, and beyond the school gate. This is all stuff you can research and test, stress test and sense check. Those are the words I get from the civil servants in Whitehall. What is he talking about? Common sense. Common sense. It is so devoid of everything that we're doing at the moment. It's all so complicated. It's too simple to be that straightforward, isn't it? And if we just trust ourselves and give ourselves a chance, what would the art of the possible be? That is our call to action. With 2 cycles now, following London, we have produced reports. And I can now list over 150 reports and submissions of evidence that have sense checked that there is an instinct. We're making the case. But how can it be taking so much time when we're seeing, as a result of that time, the educational non-attainment, the anxieties of mental health, and the emotional deficit, see those inequalities, see a disaffection, disillusionment, and disadvantage that, ladies and gentlemen, as of last night in Shepherd's Bush, an 18-year-old lost his life on our streets. They may not be these streets, but they're part of our streets. If a life is priceless, how can it ever be acceptable? Per head, per population. If a life is priceless, then we should all be asking ourselves the question, why don't we have a sports ministry that is a youth ministry that brings everything by way of interdepartmental resources and quality and talent and policy literacy, so that we're able to sustain what I believe the UN development goals provide us. We are a UN member country. We are part of the Security Council. The Sustainable Development Goals are the global framework. And as a UN NGO, that's what we work towards. And then we locally deliver it. So we have 10 community campuses in 10 core cities. 1 million children and young people who would be below the radar and not afforded the opportunity that I believe they have the fundamental right to. £11 million is the investment. 300 police officers, 3,000 police officers, as part of a national emergency and a public health disaster, as a recent spate of youth violence suggested, means that there's a very strong socio-economic case. But it requires collaboration. It requires alliance. And I'm here to say to you, we are not working together. We are still competing for resource. We have to be more collaborative. We have to be more equally inclusive and diverse. Not in look, but in thought, in knowledge, in wisdom, in experience. This is a fight we have to win. I'm now the chair of the Board of Governors at the University of East London. Check that one out. No degree, it's causing havoc. My degree in common sense really is challenging them. The conceptualized thinking, the pedagogy, the quantitative and qualitative empirical research of outputs and outcomes. It's just a language. We need a common language. We need intellect and intelligence and applied social sciences that brings everything together. So our community campuses are in existence, but you know the one thing that I pride myself on with regards to the Youth Charter? We're visibly invisible. Some of you have heard of us, but this is a drum I've been beating for 26 years. And as much as I put into training, returning back into competition after 35 years, because fighting for the streets was required to bring people's attention to the cause. Lord Sebastian Coe joined me on March the 7th as we relocated the Youth Charter office to the University of East London, where we're losing the most lives. We gave our call to action. That's it there. It just simply requires people to buy into it and get on with it, not faff around with it or give it any due consideration. Because if we are about to get whatever the future Prime Minister might represent in their instinct, I know who I want to win, because I know exactly what I'm going to say to him. But they've got to say it to everybody else. It's no one single person. So if we are about the art of the possible and achieving the impossible, every single thing is doable. We've had £1 million in 26 years. Do you know why? It's the indomitable human spirit that will do it anyway. And I'll leave this one just for your minds to wonder, on all things being equal. There's another gold medalist in here today. If you find her, I'll give you an extraordinary experience that will give you such an extraordinary ability to enrich what you're doing now and give you so much satisfaction. It will be priceless. Last year, Olympic medalist, Commonwealth Games gold medalist. Darren Campbell. Were any of you here last year? Did you hear what he shared? Do you remember what he shared? Without him, and without Benji Stanley, and the friends that he lost, and me getting him out of Moss Side, because Linford Christie and Colin Jackson, one of your Princes of Wales, who helped launch the Youth Charter in '93 at Wembley, saw him not only become a father, but he's about to become a grandfather. There are enough case studies, there are enough examples. We need to just get on with it. We need to look for outputs and outcomes at our sustainable development goals. We can have as many end quotes as we want. We can all walk our talk, talk our walk, but today it needs to be a call to action. We need to win this fight, because it's a fight worth winning. And if we make enough of a noise, how come we've not marched on the village of Westminster? Every time I go in there, and Hugh will confirm it, there's everyone campaigning about everything. Why have we not got in the faces of those who are far too distracted of who they represent? We the people, for the people, by the people. That's our philosophy, that's our mission. Please, thank you, and I intend to make no more apologies for those lives who have the least opportunity to feast on it. We're here, we'll give answers what you wish to hear, and a lot more that you don't want to hear, because we're not here to be yes people. We're here to agree, but when it isn't right, we challenge it, because it's the right thing to do. Bless you, and bless everything that we do. Peace.